Speaking of trance, how many people here are starting to feel a little woozy and not entirely with it? Excellent, you're in the right place. Recall, and this is a promise I will remind you of repeatedly over the next few days. Recall, I did promise you this morning that at some point over the next 3 or 4 days, you will totally lose the plot. You'll have no idea what's going on, where you are, maybe even who you are. Would that be fair to say? Are some people here starting to sense that's already beginning to happen for them? Okay? This is about right. This is the slow trickling point. By this evening, we'll have a lot more companions to join you. And by tomorrow, it just gets real bad. Realize that virtually every single person in this room will go through that at some point. It's normal, it's natural. If you have any concerns, feel free to talk to me, one of the assistants, and we'll do this. But you're in a good place. Okay, folks, you had fun this morning. Anyone? You feel like you've been learning some stuff?
Yes.
Who did an induction before lunch? Good, excellent. That's what we like to see. Hypnosis is a performance art, amongst other things, which means you have to do it to get good at it. It's good to understand things. It's good to, think about certain bits and pieces. But here is not the place to be thinking about them. You think about them tonight when you're at home, at the end of the week when you reflect back on your experiences. The best thing you can do in here is understand enough to do the next exercise, and then do it, and do it, and do it again. Does that make sense? The more experience you guys can get into or under your belt, the better. And let's face it, where else are you going to get a room where there's 159 other people eager to be your hypnotic victims? Subject. Right? It doesn't really happen normally. So you may as well take advantage of this opportunity. Would you like me to tell you what historically, in terms of when we've done this seminar before, who historically has done the absolute best? The ones who've written the real high rises, the shining stars. Would you like to know what they did differently to everyone else? In the evenings, when everyone else left, they met up with 1 or 2 other people and carried on training out in the corridors of the hotel lobbies. Some went to the restaurant and carried on doing it with that. They had such a good time, they ended up hypnotizing half the staff until the manager came out and asked them to stop it. And of course, 2 hours later, the manager gets released too. They came in an hour, half an hour early, waiting outside for anyone who was there, and then they asked very politely, do you want to do some practice? And people would go, don't worry, I'll do the trance, you just enjoy it. And people would go, sure, fine. Just by doing that, they got so much more experience. They didn't get any more knowledge. The know-how was the same, the training sessions are identical. But they got so much more experience that they got more out of the know-how because they understood it better, because there was more experience to refer back to. Does that make sense to you guys? How many of you here are retaking this course, have taken this course once before? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a fair number, right? Let me ask you guys this. Are you seeing things now that you were totally oblivious to the first time that you did the course? Would that be fair to say? Yes? And we haven't even got into the big stuff yet. We're just still doing the wind-up routines, the warm-up routines, right? The more experience you get, the more connections your brain, your mind is making. The more connections you have, the more, shall we say, building blocks you have to make sense of all of this, which means you'll be understanding more of the things in a deeper way, better than everyone else does. Whether or not you do that, that's your choice. But I will lay out to you what the path is to get the most out of this. Now, I will also let you know what is a tendency to happen. At least half the people in this room will experience this at some point. The day will finish, you'll feel great, I've done some good work. And it's like, I'll just have a cold beer or a sandwich, go to bed, watch some TV, CSI, whatever you watch, and that'll be it. If you can just say, you know what, I don't really feel like it right now, but I'll just spend an extra 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes, that's not much to do, is it? I'll spend an extra 10 minutes to do it on my own. That 10 minutes is probably going to be worth more to you than all the exercise you've done in here. Would you like to know why? Because you're deciding to do it now. You're stretching your own mind. You've taken responsibility. Right now, it's my responsibility. I say stand up, you'll stand up because you paid your money, right? It'd be kind of a waste if you wouldn't do it, right? If I ask you to do an exercise, you'll jump in. You may feel a little bit like that, but then there's the whole peer pressure to dive in. You do it. You feel great afterwards. And wouldn't that be fair to say you did an exercise? You felt a little bit nervous ahead of time. You did it, and you felt great afterwards. Would you say that you've all experienced that at some point? Yes? There is no difference between it in here or out there. And there's no difference between doing it out there in the evenings and actually starting your practice and having the same kind of inhibition about seeing an actual live client. The process is the same. In here, I can guide you through that. But if you choose to guide yourself through that, it means there's no brakes left on you. Because when you go home, it's a habit. You realize like, oh, I feel a bit like, great, that's where I need to be. That's how you begin. And then it becomes easy again. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? So I'm not going to sit here, I'm not going to preach to you about how much you should do or shouldn't do. I'll leave it up to you. But if you really are committed to being great at hypnosis, then spend a little more time on your own today, in the evenings, maybe tomorrow morning when you come back and so on, and do stuff. Rest assured you'll have plenty of stuff to do with people by the time you get to it. Okay? But you need to take responsibility of your learning to take it outside of this room so it's in the rest of the world. And even if it's just doing a quick instant induction on the top of the deck or in the parking lot, it's not in here, and that's why it's worth more. Make sense? Okay. Anyone have a need to do something? So we've gone through our power words, right? Just as a quick experiment, what were the power words? What's the first one? Then, and, then, and. Okay, about 3 of you got that one. That's good. It's useful because you can get some more, right? It's useful to drill yourself to make it very fluent with just those 5, not because there's any magic in those particular 5, but because it's a base. And then adding another one is not easy, is not difficult. It's just a 6th one. Adding another 2, well, you get 7, 8. Before you know it, you're on up 10, 15, 20. By the time you have 30, they'll be easier to do than the 5 you have right now. At some point, you'll have so many, you won't need to grasp for words anymore because they'll always be there for you, right? So really drill these things in. Did you enjoy doing the exercise earlier on with it? Right? We'd like a little more. So then let's have a look at the hypnotic themes, relaxation and calmness. These are themes, these are experiences that you've had to one degree or another whilst you've been put in trance. Would that be fair to say? Now, no one initially suggested these things to you. They just kind of arose by themselves. Would that be fair to say? Yeah? Now, the reason this is important is not because you have to be relaxed to be in trance. That's a mistake a lot of hypnotists make. They think that hypnosis is just relaxation with an open mind. It's one way of viewing it, I guess. But then I've seen hypnosis done with people who are stiff and rigid, right? Calmness is not a prerequisite for hypnosis either, but it's a really nice place to be. And there's a tendency to take people there. So the question is, what other experiences did you have whilst you're doing these exercises that let you know that something had shifted? In other words, you're normally this way and suddenly something shifted and now you have something else going on. What were those qualities aside from calmness and relaxation? Anyone? Say again? Learning. So you felt yourself learning? Okay, we can put that over here then. Ooh. I'll go with a red line, that's good. Okay. What else? Focus. Did anyone else feel a bit more focused as the whole process continued? Yes? All right, let's go with focus. Let's do this down here. What else did you guys feel? Say again? Depth. So how do you feel depth? Like an intensifying of the experience, or? Yeah, the more I went in, it felt like you're going into something. Yeah? Okay, we'll call that depth in general. Anyone else have that kind of experience? We'll use that word in, I guess. What else did you guys experience? Go ahead.
Anxious, anxiety.
So you got more anxious as the process went through?
Certain things make me feel anxious.
So some things made you feel anxious and some things less so, okay? We'll keep that one in the back of our minds because we'll learn what to do with that as time goes by. Did the anxiety help you become more focused, more relaxed, or so on? Or did it take you out of the experience, or did you more into it?
Actually, I've had it happen both ways.
Okay, interesting. Good. What other experiences did you guys have? Quietness is a great one. Comfort is a classic one. Trust, I had someone mark out there. So would it be fair to say, I mean, this is an incomplete list, isn't it? But these are qualities that more often than not have been present whilst we've been going through these experiences. Would that be fair to say? Now, I realize that everyone has their own experience. Some have more of one, less of the other. Sometimes it's very different to this. But overall, this matches most people's experience. Is that correct? So if attention goes, or if energy flows where attention goes, and you were to route someone's attention through these things over and over and over again, what do you think would happen? They'd have those experiences. If they have those experiences, what are the chances of them being in a trance more than others? It tends to increase, right? So we call these trance themes or hypnotic themes because these are qualities that will be conducive for people experiencing trance. It can be done other ways, but these are nice qualities to have. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? So here's what we're going to do now. In a moment, you're going to find a partner. When you did the instant induction earlier today, what is the very first thing you had to do? You tested it for compliance. Would that be fair to say? So step one was? All right, that's 2 man and a dog. There's a few more people than that in the room. So what's the first thing you did? Compliance. Compliance, right? But we want to start moving in the direction of something more conversational now. So whilst it's good to carry on doing the physical compliance, can you stand here, can you look at me this way, and so on, those are more overt signs, and it's good to carry on doing that to get more familiarity with it. I also want you to have the flip side, which is more subtle ways of doing the same thing, right? So I want you to really pay attention to something. Just really listen into this. Do I have compliance? It's a little more subtle to spot, isn't it? Yeah? Just look at this a moment. Everyone just have a look at that. Do I have compliance? But again, it fits the social context, the interaction that we're having. So it doesn't jump out of the interaction like starting saying, please stand up, which is taking you out of the interaction. And yet, I still, if I observe you, get to have a good sense of where you're at. Does that make sense? The more you do the physical things that are easiest to spot, then when you go to the more subtle versions, you'll still have a good sense of how they're responding. And that should make sense at this point, right? So we have compliance. What is the next thing that you did? You heard it over here. What is that? The induction. Absolutely right, right? The induction we did a moment ago was basically startle reflex and sleep, right? It's about as simple as you can get. What did we do after the induction? We did the deepener, exactly. And of course, when I say deepen, you realize it's not necessarily a question of deepen, it's just intensification. It could be widening, it could be elongating, it could be rising. Whatever it is, it's a metaphor for increasing whatever is there, right? So these are the main things that we did so far. Would that be fair? So now, what if we, oh, it looks like a 4-year-old wrote it. There we go. So, give an example of an act of compliance you can ask for conversationally. Just move over here. How about, would you like to work with me? Sure. Great. Is that an act of compliance? Would you take a seat over here? Is that an act of compliance? But it feels like we're just having a conversation. No one knows that we've started yet unless you are looking for it like we are. Does that make sense? So I want you to have a real simple act of compliance. Can everyone think of something like that they want to do? Yes? Does that make sense? Can I talk to you a minute? Right? Are you happy to have it start? Exactly. You're happy to dive in and have a go? Perfect. So you're all happy to do that. And importantly, it's not just the question that's of importance, it's the response that you're getting. It's how they react to the request. That's what you're interested in, right? Turn to the person next to you a moment and ask them to close their eyes, would you? And once it's happened, turn the other way and do the same thing again, so the other person gets to go. So Niren, that's it. Was that difficult to do, folks? No? Not exactly rocket science, would that be fair to say? So why don't we just add something here? Whoop. Add something here that you're already familiar with. Is that difficult to do? To ask someone to do that? Yes? No? Just to say the word. Right, you just say it, and then whatever they do is your next step, right? What I'd like you to do is find the person sitting next to you, just turn to them right now. I would like to get one simple act of compliance based on how well they're complying, and folks, let's be nice to them at this point, we're just still doing some training wheels here. Then just ask them very simply to close their eyes and go into a trance. Can you all do that? All right, you have 10 seconds apiece, because it does not take long. Off you go. Have you all had a chance to go both ways quickly? Yeah? It didn't take long. It takes 3 seconds to ask one question, 3 seconds to ask the next statement, and you're pretty much there, right? Would that be fair to say? Feedback here, folks? Yes or no? Yes. All right. Do you want a little bit more than that? Yes. So you may or may not have had a great trance, right? And by the way, anyone here think like, well, that's not much of a trance induction? Just a couple of words. Right? Would you all do me a favor a moment? Just put your pens and papers down, would you? You see the act of compliance, do you not? Then I'd like for you, in your own time, when you're ready, to just close your eyes and go into a comfortable trance now. That's right, just close those eyes and go into a comfortable trance now. And then come on back. Who here didn't want to come back when I just asked you to do? How is that possible, folks, if this is not an induction? How could you want to stay somewhere you haven't changed from where you've come from? Right? So, even though it's simple, it's still using the law of association. Can you see that very clearly? Yes? Right? Because you've used the law of association and you've suggested something, the chances of them responding that way are much higher. Is it the end-all and be-all? Of course not. But you're assuming your compliance is right, the mindset is in the right place, well then you do not need any more than this. Sometimes you need to have a little bit of extra skill to get them to that point, and that's what we'll cover as we go through more of the days. But the essence is right here, and you've all felt it pretty much now, haven't you? Yes? And the reason I'm saying this, folks, is because you don't want to overcomplicate things. You can make it as sophisticated and elegant and as much stuff in it as you want, but you don't need to do anything crazy around it. I'll come to you in a minute, if I may. If you understand a simple version, then all these sophisticated, elegant things you've seen, you've been wanting to do, it's just lots of these things put together. It's the idea behind them that matters, your expression of a principle. Principle here is the law of association, and the idea of a suggestion. Does that make sense? You had a quick question. Let me just give you the microphone here.
Yeah,
would you pass the back so that we can all hear properly?
Okay. Was more of a comment. You don't even need to call it a trance. Go into a trance. You can just say and relax and focus on your breathing or whatever.
I like the way you're thinking, Cora. You're about 2 days ahead of everyone else. Good job. Seriously. So this is easy. Yes, everyone has done this. Oh, quick one.
What if people don't know the meaning of trance?
The question is, what if people don't know the meaning of trance? That's what we'll come on to. Right now, we're doing baby steps. Right? Do you all know a rough idea of what I mean by trance? By rough, I mean it's getting clearer, although you're not entirely sure what it is yet. Yes? That's all we need. It'll make more sense as we go along, don't worry. So, the next thing, what was the third step we did? A deepener, right? So now we're going to have one, oh, you know what? Let's do this again. Let's do it this way. Do you recognize the power word here? The ellipses, the little dots. What do you think you put in there? The correct answer is right there. Would you like to say that nice and loud for everyone else to hear?
Whatever you like.
Exactly. Because you're using the law of associations. Of course, when we say whatever you like, you realize that some things are going to be more conducive to get the result than others. Relax! Or relax. You realize that, right? But honestly, right now, I don't care what you do. You can go all the way to one extreme or the other, or stay somewhere in the middle. Don't care, right? To some extent or another, it will have practical value. Quick question over here.
Couldn't you even change that to every time you breathe?
So the question is, couldn't you change it from I to you? Every time you breathe, you'll go deeper and deeper. Do it. Find out. See what happens. Do you all understand the exercise? Oh, quick question over here.
Can we change the order of the process? Can you have the deepener first before the induction?
You can definitely try it and see what happens. And tell us afterwards if you want to do it that way. Okay? Seriously, try it, see what happens, and then tell us afterwards what the experience was for you or for your partner. Okay, guys? For the moment, though, for anyone who wants to keep it in a simple direction, we'll start with step one, which is, here we go. You'll act on compliance. I'm leaving it blank because it's infinite almost. Close your eyes and go into a trance. You can clearly see the power words. And then every time I, you, whatever, you'll go deeper. Is that easy to do, folks? If I gave you 30 seconds, you could do that with a person next to you, and then give them a chance to do it back to you, right? Go ahead and do it. So how is that? Interesting? Who is surprised with how much more effective this is than it should be with just a few words? Anyone? Who here, being the subject, the client, actually really enjoyed it and thought, well, I don't want him to stop. Just carry on a little longer. I won't admit it in public, but you'll soon be joining TA. You know what that is? Trance Anonymous. Hi, I haven't had a good trance in 3 days. Please help me. Okay, so this is easy, right? Up until this point, we basically did exactly the same thing you did with the instant induction, but now we're using language for it, right? So can you see the parallels in terms of the maneuvers? You've seen the same responses, only it's a little more conversational. Not entirely conversational yet, because we're still dealing with overtly hypnotic themes, but it's more of a stepping stone in that direction. Will that be correct? Yes? What I'd like to introduce you to now is what are you going to do with them there? I mean, let's face it, you didn't come all this way just to learn how to put someone in trance, because that's the easy part. The bit where you really make or break your skill set, where you become a true master at something, is when you get results, isn't it? And the result is not the trance is a means to that result. Unfortunately, a lot of people focus on, oh, what's the best technique for this? What's the best induction for that? And it's irrelevant. Once you have the trance, you have the trance. You want to waste as little time as possible on that. It's step 4 that you're interested in. That's where you do your work, right? Whoop. Isn't that a simple way of presenting something of benefit to people here? Who here thinks that they have something to learn over the next few days? Anyone? So if someone would suggest to you that it's easier to learn, that your mind opens to these new learnings, do you think that would be a overall more positive or more negative thing for you? Once again, only 2 people seem to be thinking this. We can do negative hypnosis as well. I have a top hat and a monocle. We can do evil hypnosis school. I can really mess you guys up if you want that. But overall, would you prefer evil hypnosis school or someone to give you overall learnings and so on? Which would you rather have? I agree with you. Thank you for that. Notice once again that we are now associating things. The word until, all they're doing is attaching to an ongoing process, which is their deepening. You have no idea when it's going to be. They don't know it's going to be. But it'll happen when it happens. Because you've suggested. Does that make sense? Quick question at the back here.
Yeah, I was just saying on the physical induction, we use the tapping on the head as to get the startle reflex and to bypass the critical factor. I was wondering what would be the equivalent here.
That's a great question to think about, isn't it?
Yes.
Why is it not in here?
Exactly. Where is it?
I know. That's not the best question. The question is, why is it not in here? Do you understand the difference? That's a good response. I like that one. Keep it in your mind. And I promise you, if in the next day or 2 it hasn't been answered for you by your own experience, I will specifically address that for you. Is that okay? In fact, if you like, put that down as a question and put it on the question wall, and that way you'll be sure that I'll keep it uppermost in my mind. So far, so good? Yeah? Is this easy? Is this easy?
Yes.
Do you want me to add just one more step, seeing as it's just so easy anyways? That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? So here's the final step. And you can just do these literally. The language, you realize, is there's no magic in the language. It's the ideas that you're communicating step by step. Does that make sense? The last step is actually the easiest because you've done it all along without even realizing it. Is that easy or what? Right? Do you see the same principle of suggestion, the law of association in action throughout that? And that's what allows you to turn something physical, like the instant induction, to something more conversational, if not yet entirely so. Make sense? So I would call this a 10-second hypnotist. Do you know why? Because you get 10 seconds to do this. So 20 seconds for both sides, off you go. So how's that, folks?
Great.
Right? Yeah, give yourself a round of applause for sure. You deserved it. Who here is starting to feel like a genuine hypnotist, if not like they're surrounded by one? Watch the hands up, because if you're not feeling like one, the person next to you is disagreeing with you. So this is a simple process, right? This is the core movements you go through in a hypnosis session. We'd like to refine it a little bit more, because have you noticed how there are some things that assist the whole process and some things that detract? In other words, there can be interruption, disturbances, and so on, right? We realize, of course, that life is not ideal. Perhaps you're sitting in your office with a client, you're having this wonderful, great trance, and the next thing you know, the phone goes off, right? Or, as happened to me, you're in the middle of London, you're starting your trance, and suddenly the building next door has a jackhammer out going, "Grrr," which is, of course, is a wonderful sound for calm, peaceful contemplation. Right? Of course, with hypnosis, it can be. So what we're going to do now is what I call boilerplates. A boilerplate is a legal term, it's kind of legal slang, really, for those clauses you put into a contract that every contract has to have. So they just basically, no one thinks about them, you just take them, whack them in there, and they're just done. Right? I'd like you to think of the following ideas as boilerplates because it's a good habit to get into in most, if not all, the trance you do, just to throw a quick line out there for these ideas, and of course observing to make sure that they're sinking in, because it'll save you potential heartache later on, like the jackhammer. Does that kind of make sense? So just remind me again, what is the first thing you do whenever you're starting a trance process? Anyone? Right. I'm going to write compliance. I'm going to spell it in an unusual way. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. That's just how they spell it in England, okay? What's the second thing that you do? Does anyone disagree? There seems to be a little bit of doubt in the air. What's the second thing you do? A little more certainty, but there's still a huge amount of silence here. One was deafened by it. What's the second thing you do? Now I'm feeling the love. That's good. What's the third thing that we do? Do we have to do this again, folks, really? What's the third thing we do? There we go. That's good. Right? Now, before we get to the point where we'll do the work, the trance work, which is the bit you just did a moment ago, we want to start introducing these boilerplates, right? The first one of these boilerplates, and by the way, the order is not hugely significant. They can be, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1. I don't really care. But we'll just put in this order just for the ease of remembering. I call the sounds around you. Here we go. So basically, we're going to take distractions and turn them into deepeners, right? The jackhammer now becomes the sound that's going to take them deeper and deeper into trance. Provided you did your setup right, the first three things, then this is more likely to succeed also. Does that make sense? I remember there's a great story of a hypnotherapist who did this, who had was working in an office with these big grandfather clocks with a big bonging and so on. So he could hear the kind of winding up, the winch that winds up before the big bend tolls and the whole building shakes. He could hear it happening right in the middle of his trance, and he thought, oh my God, it's like 4 or 5 p.m. So he knows there's not going to be just one, there's going to be a lot of these bongs coming out, right? So what does he do? He adapts this and says something along the lines of, in a moment you're going to hear a sound that will move you to 5 new ways of discovering of how you can resolve this problem. Boom, that's 1. Boom, 2. By the end of the whole session, the client wanted to buy the clock and take it home. So do you understand the idea of sounds around you? The idea is real simple. The possible distraction, in this case sounds, you now associate to going deeper, right? I will give you an example under the proviso that you promise never to use this one. And the reason for that is not that I care that you use it or not, is that I care about whether you only use this one. You may as well find many other ways. And until you found at least 5 others, boom, don't use the one I'm about to give you. Is that a fair trade we can make? Yeah. Then you're at liberty to do whatever you want. So I want you to know, everyone just close your eyes for a moment, just so you can experience a bit. And you may as well find yourself calming down a bit on the inside. There you go. And it's nice to find comfort and relax for a while. And because it's nice to find that comfortable place inside where good things can happen, I'd like for you to know that from time to time, you may hear sounds around you. Chairs being moved around, people walking, the air conditioning, humming, the sound of people breathing. All these sounds and more will only serve to take you even deeper, intensify this trance even further. So listen and enjoy going deeper. That's right. Whenever you're ready, come on back, even though I know you really don't want to. Good job. Can everyone feel the room somehow has calmed down a bit. It's almost like if there was such a thing as a psychic vibe, it's the waves have gone flat. Yeah? Can you feel that? It's part of trance. Who here noticed the sounds more when I mentioned them, but actually enjoy them? Right? That's what sounds around you does. Is that easy to do? Right? So when I give you, I say 20 seconds apiece, I'd like to do the whole induction here. At some point, at some point, we're going to have another number here, which will be the trance work. And what's the theme for our trance work at the moment? Okay, the middle row has passed now. Let's try this again. What's the theme for the general trance work? Of course it is. Well done. I agree with you. Then we'll have a few other bits and pieces happening. 1, 2. Yeah, why not? Here we go. We'll do that away. We'll do this. And at this point, you can count them out from 1 to 4. You can do whatever. You can just let it happen naturally. But you're going to give them specific suggestions for them to end the trance so they know the time's up. Does that make sense? Does everyone know what to do with these 6 or so steps? Yes? There was a quick question or not really? Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you say the sounds put them deeper, and you say your voice is saying 1, 2, 3 and come up.
So the sounds, if he says your sounds will put you deeper, and the voice, and then you ask, my voice will, I'm going to count from 1 to 3 to bring you back. What does that do? Do it and find out. Or better still, ask your partner to do it to you and experience it for yourself. Fair enough? All right, guys, off you go. Okay. So judging by the slight increase in difficulty getting you back, I'm presuming you enjoyed that, yes? Is that easy? What did you notice when you had that sounds around you language presented to you? Let's just get these microphones out. Go ahead, just pass it back. Thank you.
I actually felt him going deeper even quicker.
Right, it intensified the whole process, right? So now your basically safety blanket to ensure problems don't occur, actually do something else. They'll do the deepening for you as well, right? Excellent. Do you want to pass the mic back a little bit? And then just click it up for on.
I actually found it a little bit more difficult to sort of pay attention to what was going on, both in terms of listening to the sounds that were going on around me, as well as trying to listen to my my hypnotist.
So the other sounds started coming in, but you're losing touch with your hypnotist. Is that correct?
Yes, but at the same time, I was also trying to, because the suggestion was to take a listen to the things around me and to allow it to sort of wash over me and become more relaxed. And I found that increasingly difficult to listen to the sounds around me while also having to try and listen to the hypnotist.
So there's this kind of split that was beginning to occur between the task you're instructed to do, listen to the sounds, go deeper, and your connection with the hypnotist, whether it's listening to him talking, carrying on with suggestions. Is that correct? Is that roughly what you're saying? Perfect. Because that will happen to every one of you at some point in your hypnotic career. You will lose contact with your client. Either because you suggested something much like this that inadvertently creates a conflict in their mind, or because they're feeling so damn good, they don't want to have anything to do with the outside world for a while, and you're part of that world. Right? That's kind of the direction that we're going in. We'll take your questions and your comments in a second, if I may. And remember, we have the questions also. If you want to write them down, if we don't address them now, I will come back to them, I promise you. So we'd like to have a solution to exactly this problem. It's a problem that every hypnotist will run into unless they prepare for it. Would you like to have one? That's what step 5 is about. Off you go. I'm kidding. So, I am. How might you overcome that problem? Any ideas? Once again, the front row has it. You suggest it. You make sure, if the problem was caused by suggestion in the first place, you're going to use suggestion to prevent it from arising on its own. So the second of the boilerplates, which is the step number 5 here, is, and I'm taking this from Milton Erickson because he had a very nice way of doing it. It's called the My Voice boilerplate. My voice will go with you no matter where you go. You'll continue to hear me and follow my instructions easily, naturally, effortlessly. You know the idea is? You get the idea of where I'm coming from with this? Because then that conflict can no longer arise. Now, admittedly, anything can and at some point will go wrong. It's true. Every induction will at some point fail. Every process will find someone that will defeat it one way or the other. That's life, right? Let's just get over that because it's going to happen one way or the other. It happens when you're driving a car. It happens when you're writing your name out. It happens when you're making friends. It happens everywhere, right? But what we can do is we can increase the likelihood that we will succeed significantly by doing these things. And all we're doing is, it's like that game, that film which was Every Given Sunday. There's that famous speech called A Game of Inches, right? We're playing a game of inches. We are constantly adding one little piece on top of another, each of which on its own may or may not be enough, but together they get very strong. Does that make sense? So the way you're going to do the My Voice thing is very simple. You're going to associate your voice with their attention. So their attention can always hear your voice, follow it, and most important of all, continue to follow the instructions and suggestions presented for their well-being. That way, you can continue to guide them through the trance. One of my favorite ways of doing this, a very, very simple way, say, you will continue to hear my voice at some level, so it's always guiding you through this experience. Does that make sense? Then I don't care whether he's actually listening to it consciously, he's aware of it or not, because as long as he's following the guidance, as long as he's having the experience suggested, I now have unconscious attention, whilst conscious attention is somewhere else, which is a beautiful place to be. And we'll show you how to get to that tomorrow, or the day after. Or the day after that, who knows? Does that make sense as an idea? Can we just have a mic over here quickly? Go ahead.
Could you also use their own mental chatter as a deepener?
Try it and find out. Right? You will hear me say that a lot. Okay, folks, very simply, I want you to do, whoops, let's do this way. I want you to do those 7 steps. And the trance work, just literally just say something about learning once again, whatever moves you. Don't take too long, because I'd rather just finish this up first and then we can spend some time playing with it. Does that make sense to you guys? Notice how I'm not spending too much time on any one of these points, 4, 5, and so on. They're just enough that I know they've got the idea, and then I can move on, right? Why waste time doing something that's already happening, right? Is it quick, or go ahead? Can you switch the order? Absolutely. You can switch the order any way you want to, right? Off you go. You know what? Let's pause 1 second. Let's do it this way. I would like all of you to find a different partner. Do an instant induction on them with no other preamble, just the instant induction just for the mechanic's sake. Bring him back 2 seconds later, and then do this on the same person. That will be your act of compliance. Does that make sense? Can I borrow a volunteer, please? Well, you know what? He just put his hand out so quick, we may as well. Come on up. Give him a round of applause. Come up this way. No preamble, look at me, sleep. All the way deeper, deeper, deeper. You're doing a good job. I'll be right back. Great. Now, have a seat. I've done 1. Close your eyes and go into a trance. I've done 2. And you see where we go from here? You may as well do it all on your own now, whilst they go off and find a partner. You'll find one right in a few moments' time. Is that easy to do? The instant induction has become your act of compliance. Off you go. Whenever you're ready, Christopher, bring yourself back. That's good. Find a partner as well. Okay, how's that? Who's having fun? Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. Who here is starting to find it difficult to figure out which partner's had hypnotic experience before and who hasn't? Anyone?
I asked the question.
Right.
I said, are you a hypnotist? Because I really thought he was.
The answer is yes. If you thought he was, he must have been. And if he didn't realize he was, then you knew something he didn't about himself. So are you noticing, everyone, seriously, are you noticing how it's you know, maybe in the first couple of exercises you could tell someone's a little more confident, you get, yeah, I get this, probably done this before, this is probably the first time. But now it's getting increasingly difficult, not necessarily impossible, but increasingly difficult to tell who's been here before and who hasn't, right? We haven't even finished the first day yet, folks. You're already at this stage. By the end of the day today, it will be virtually impossible to tell the difference. At that point, you're all coming up together into a fantastic new place, right? But just notice that, because if everyone else in this room right now is saying that they're finding it difficult to distinguish the experience from the unexperienced hypnotist, that means they're talking about you, doesn't it? By definition. So congratulate yourself on actually doing a great job. And how many of you really have no idea what you're doing, but you're kind of enjoying it anyways? Anyone getting there? That's the best place to be, folks. Yeah, why not? Do that for everyone. Okay, so we have one more boilerplate in the start sequence that I'm going to ask you to focus on. This one is something that I don't expect to be necessary at any point in this training. Occasionally it does become necessary, but it's a great thing to do overall when you're doing hypnosis. Let me ask you this. Is anyone in this room psychic to the point where they can tell exactly what's going on in someone else's mind and know everything about their life history so they know what topics to avoid in order to avoid triggering something negative? Yes? Anyone? Good for you. Well done. I would love to learn that. For us mere mortals, we're left guessing to a certain extent to what experiences are likely to give them a positive, beneficial impact, and what things are going to trigger off something negative. Because you never know, right? I remember one lady I worked with had a phobia of the nodding donkey, you know, those oil well things that just come up and down, right? She's never ever been to an oil well. She was in the UK. I have no idea where she got it from. Maybe she was beaten while she was Dallas in the background. Who knows, right? Yeah, for all the young people going, Dallas, what? So you never can tell what's going to set someone else off. So if that's the case, you want to make sure that you place right up front a mechanism that will help pull someone out of whatever pit they may fall into if you've accidentally pushed them into it. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? So there's different ways of calling this. You can call it safety, sanctuary, whatever you want to call it. Let's just call it something simple. Everyone just close your eyes for a moment, would you? Just put your pens down somewhere safe and close your eyes. Of course, you already know what happens when you close your eyes in here. So you might as well enjoy that process of calming down inside. And listening to your own breathing, taking you deeper. As well as the other sounds that take you deeper. Because my voice can continue to guide you throughout the whole experience. Making sure that you stay safe. And you are safe. You know that, don't you? Feel that chair and know how safe you are here. You'll never be asked to do anything you're not ready for. Feel the chair. Know you're safe. And when you're feeling that chair thoroughly and sensing that well-being that comes with knowing you're totally safe, then allow yourself to drift back into the room, your eyes to open, your breathing to shift, maybe a little stretch and a yawn. And if you want to give me a standing ovation, I'll accept that too. Yes, I like this. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to keep this one. This is a good one. Much better. I used to ask for chocolate. I prefer this one. Okay, did you all get the sense of what a place of safety is about? You don't need to do any great rigmarole. We'll go into more elaborate ways of doing it tomorrow. But for now, real simple, real quick. And all we're doing is, once again, it's the law of association and action, isn't it? Right? Everyone understand what you're doing? I'd like you to do those 7 steps and then end the trance, bring them back. Is this easy? Yes? Almost a little too easy? Yes? We'd like to have one little wafer-thin challenge. Yes. Just to throw in there for the hell of it.
Bring it on, Igor.
I like the way you said that. Okay, I'd like to find a different person in a moment, just to mix it up a little bit. You may as well get some experience of other people. And you recall how earlier on you did a quick instant induction, brought them back 2 seconds later, and then you actually did the whole process. Would that be fair to say? Did you notice anything happening in the quality of the trance you had as a result of having that quick instant induction first and then the trance? What tended to happen? Was it better, deeper? Is that faster? Are these the kind of words that are coming out? Well, it makes me curious. There's only one way to test whether or not that's actually just in your mind or in reality. That would be to increase the effect by doing 2 quick inductions first and then this whole process, right? See what happens. It's an experiment after all, isn't it? Off you go. Easy? Yes? Still in the same room? Easy? Yes. Fun? Who feels good? That's what we like to hear. What do you notice? Let's have some microphones. Assistants, can you just hand the mics out a little bit? What do you notice happening when you did 2 quick mini inductions before the main trance process? Just hand a mic out to whatever hands. There's one hand here. Just put it to the side. There you go.
One thing that I noticed, I felt a little bit, and at first there was a little bit of hesitancy on my behalf of kind of doing
as the hypnotist or the subject?
As the hypnotist.
Okay.
Doing it again because it felt like I had just done it.
Yeah.
But in the second time there was a little bit more hesitancy, but once I did it I did the 2 instant inductions and then I went through the whole thing. By the time the third thing had gone through, I saw the effects of those first 2 and how deeply they went. And especially during the deepen part.
And it's good to realize the hesitation was in your mind, not theirs.
Correct.
Right? And by the way, this is where most should we say, rules in hypnosis come from. It's more to do with the hypnotist's inadequacies than the client's, right? We'd like to know the biggest rule of contention in the hypnosis world is currently, right? You've broken it, by the way. You are rebel outcast. It's don't touch. In a lot of clinical professions, they say, oh, it's real bad to touch clients and so on. And the reason they do that is twofold. Number one, it's because they have issues with touching or being touched. So they're projecting that onto the client, and sooner than you think, the clients will actually manifest their particular indirect suggestion, right? The second reason is some of them may have accidentally touched the wrong person who really does not like to be touched. The person freaked out, they got shocked, now tells everyone, never touch someone else. Would you like to know a quick way or a real easy way to avoid that happening to you? Would you like to see that? Can I have a volunteer, please? Just a quick volunteer, just come on up. Nearest person, up. It doesn't matter, anyone. Whoever's on the first stage first gets to have it. Done. Have a seat. So this is, think of it, scenario, typical hypnotherapy room, whatever it is. Client sits down, makes yourself comfortable, you're nice and comfortable. Now, in a moment, I'm going to do some hypnosis. The test is already there. Did you see it? Let me do it from this side. Nothing on my sleeves. So, are you ready to go into hypnosis right now?
Yes.
It's done. If he has issues with touch, this is what will happen. Just go and touch my shoulder. He might even leave it there, but that's told me enough, right? If I know I'm going to do certain other things because I want to maybe place hypnotic triggers in different places and so on, I'll go a little step further. So are you ready to do some hypnosis? Yes. Great. Now, as we go through the trance process, I may just touch your knee, your hand, your shoulder, maybe even your head. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Is it okay with him? Yes. What if he does this? He attach him on the hand. He does this and goes, yes. Do you do it? No. It's not rocket science, is it? No. Give him a round of applause. Thank you. So as long as you think with a little bit of common sense, a little bit of, you take responsibility for what you are doing, there are no hard and fast rules. All that exists are principles. You're either working in harmony with the principle or you're violating it, right? Most violations tend to make things a little more awkward for you. Some violations are useful, provided the violation actually allows you to be in harmony with a greater principle, and you'll get to figure out what the weightings is as you have more experience. Make sense? Everyone good so far? So back to this thing now. We've got the 7 steps. We've got those 3 boilerplates, the sounds around you, my voice, and the idea of safety. Really easy, isn't it? So whenever you do an induction, let's assume that this is a good general outline for the whole induction process. What is the first thing you always think about in an induction? Any ideas? Reading helps. Okay, 3 people can read, the rest are dyslexic. I somehow doubt that. So what's the first thing you do? Okay, this side really is getting it. This side's kind of like, where am I? So what's the very first thing you do when you're preparing for hypnosis? You do what? It's part of compliance, you're correct. So the next thing is, after that, number 2 is? Induction. Right, and you at least know 2 different inductions by now, right? What do you do after the induction? Deeper. I agree. What's after that? Right, what's after that? And then? Safety. And then? Transfer. Then some other stuff happens, and at the end you do what? I agree. So what's the first thing again? Context. Then what happens? Induction. Then? 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 That's easy, isn't it? Well, let's find out. What's the first thing you do? What do you do then? 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 Then some other stuff happens, and finally? You guys are good. Not difficult, is it? So what is some of this other stuff that happens that we just kind of fudged over a little bit? The reason I'm putting these other boilerplates at the end after the trance work is because if you're out of time, it's really not important whether or not you have these. These are boilerplates that are going to make your life a little easier, but if you skip them, it's not going to ruin anything. The first 3 bullet points, sounds around you, my voice, and safety, they're really good habits to get into generally because they basically, they're a vaccine. They inoculate the client against what are the most likely things to go wrong. Does that make sense to you guys? So the first of the kind of exit boilerplates, think of it this way. Have you all had a little experience of the power of suggestion, right? You suggest something, it kind of happens. How would you like your clients to go into trance without you having to do any work? Wouldn't that make your life a little easier? I mean, we can skip this section if you like. Should we skip it? No. Should we go into it? Yes. Okay, I'm liking this. So if suggestion is the primary tool that we're working with, what if we just suggest to them that the next time they go into hypnosis, it's going to be quicker, faster, easier, and deeper? Wouldn't it make it easier? And you necessarily want to do it when they see you, because what if you're walking down the road and they're driving a car, and there's a lady with a baby right in front of them, right? The only reason I'm telling you this is because I've accidentally done something very similar to that. And it's not a happy, luckily it was actually associating my voice to hypnosis. And then, of course, I'm sitting next to my friend as he's driving me to the airport, and I'm talking to him, and slowly the car starts swerving to the side. Not the happiest moment in my life. I very quickly realized that if I do hypnosis, I'm going to change my voice. Because I'm never talking to someone like this whilst they're driving. Meanwhile, back on planet Earth, this boilerplate's real simple. You know, basically tell them what to expect, right? So the next time you're in this office, if you agree to go into hypnosis, as soon as you do, you'll go into trance quickly, instantly, easily, right? Or the next time you agree to hypnosis, that's just a little safety thing in case it's not appropriate for them to do so. And I touch you on the shoulder, you'll instantly drop into a state as deep as this, or even deeper than this. The language is irrelevant. The idea is important. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? You can be creative around how to do this. Think about consequences, or should I say unintended consequences, like the next time you see me, you'll go into a trance. You've got to think about what the possible unintended consequence of that is so that you can avoid it. Make sense? But if I say the next time you see me and you have agreed to go into a trance at that point, or you said, I want to go into hypnosis, then that's fine, right? Because they made a volitional statement, they've chosen, therefore must be appropriate, and now just the act of looking at you, of course, you have a deeply hypnotic face. I understand. Right? My preference is a simple cue, a touch, a count. Anyone here still feel a little nervous about doing instant induction on real people? Right? 1 or 2 people, I understand, it happens. It'll fade as time goes by. What if you just tell them, the next time I look deep into your eyes and tap you on the head or tap you on the back of the head and say sleep, you'll go into a deepest trance of this or even deeper. Doesn't that make it easier to do instant inductions? Right? Because the instant induction will work of its own, and then it'll have the power of suggestion from this trance to add on to it, so either you win or you win. Which do you want? That's right. That's what master hypnotists do after they've failed enough. Do you understand the idea of the reinduction? Is that easy to do? Do you want a little bit more? Just for the hell of it? So there are two more boilerplates here which are of importance. First of all, let's talk about it this way. Remember a little trance line here? And when someone goes into hypnosis, they kind of start off up here, they'll go down, and they kind of fluctuate. Sometimes they'll go deeper, they'll go up, and that's kind of the trend of what happens, right? There's something I call the double dip, a phenomenon that occurs, and it occurs almost with everyone. You've experienced it today, although you haven't realized it yet. Did you notice that when someone says, in a moment it's time for you to come back, I'll count to 3, whatever they say, there's a little part of you that goes, oh. There's almost that little bit that just wants to just sink that a little bit more because you're enjoying it. It's like lying in bed and someone says, time to get up, and you go, nope, I'm not getting up, right? So as soon as they think it's over, there's actually a spike towards in the direction of trance. Because whatever little piece of awareness that was left over, analyzing the situation in case inappropriate suggestions are being presented and so on, well, if it's over, why does it need to keep paying attention, right? Then, as they come back up again, what typically happens is they hover around the trance line, dipping in and out of trance for anything from a few seconds to a few minutes afterwards. Some people up to half an hour, depending on how profound the thing was. Does that make sense? And they don't realize that at this point here, and at this point here, whoops, let's go there, they are more responsive to suggestions than at almost any other part of the induction or the whole process. So the things you say immediately after you've told them you're going to bring them back, and immediately after you've actually brought them back, are of great importance, shall we say. Make sense? Does the idea of this make sense to everyone? Go ahead.
So essentially you're saying this would be a great time to do a deepener.
Well, if you're going to induce a trance again, for sure. But we are going to instead here, because we're talking about hypnotherapy session, right? You're going to definitely put a suggestion in. And that's actually the better way of looking at it. The deepening may be a suggestion. However, what if you think of it this way? What if you save your most important suggestions for that phase?
Ooh.
Wouldn't that be something? Right? So when we come back to this idea here, the two that I like to use as a standard, as a boilerplate, you're welcome to use them this way too. This is a good habit to get into, generally speaking, is on this end of the ending of trance. You know what? This is important. We may as well keep the color different. You can never have too much self-esteem. So when you're finishing the trance, in a moment it'll be time for you to come back, and they're going, oh. Then you slip in ideas about themselves that are worthwhile having. You're a tremendous human being. You did a great job. It's a pleasure working with you. Right? Don't say anything you don't actually mean, because as we'll see as the days go by, when you have an internal conflict about what you're saying, in trance, people are more likely to pick that up. Right? But say some generally good things about them, about who they are as a person, about what their role is in life, how people will love them and how they're loved, all these different things. You can never get too much of this. Does that make sense to you guys? There's a difference between self-esteem and just an ego boost, right? And the difference is kind of where it hits you. If it's just in your mind going, oh yeah, I'm better than everyone else, that's an ego boost. Self-esteem hits you right in the center, and it becomes irrelevant where other people are at. They can be great, they can be down. In fact, you want everyone to be great. Have you ever felt this, where you feel on such a natural high, where life is just so good, you want everyone to be happy, right? That's your self-esteem shining through. As opposed to other days where, let's face it, we've all done it, we feel a little cocky and we go, I'm good. You're not so good, but I'm good, right? That's not so much self-esteem, that's more like an ego thing coming through. Do you understand the difference I'm coming for? So we're looking for their self-esteem generally to be boosted at this point. The next thing here, at the end, a lot of clients have no idea what hypnosis is. What do they expect? They may even have some misunderstandings about what it should be. When they come out, they will typically... How many of you in this room right now heard pretty much everything your hypnotist said to you? Right? But isn't hypnosis supposed to be different? Aren't you supposed to be off in some la-la land and you're a zombie mindlessly eating flesh at the command of your hypnotist? Isn't that what hypnosis is supposed to be about? Well, the answer is no, but that's not what people think, because the media and social networking, whatever, has created a different impression than what the reality is. Does that make sense? If they don't know what hypnosis is, how will they ever know they've been in it? This is a good double-edged sword for us. We'd like to know why. It's great for us because if we're doing conversation hypnosis, as we're going to get into increasingly, if they never know what trance is supposed to feel like or be like, how will they know they've been in one and can't really accuse you of saying, oh, did you just hypnotize me? Because I felt pretty good. I heard everything you said, but that must have been hypnosis. How can they do that if their expectation of what it should be is different than what they actually experience? Does that make sense? But it has a negative side. The other side of the double-edged sword is if a client has come in expecting hypnosis, they've come to see a hypnotherapist, and they didn't get what they expect, they come back out and go, well, when does the hypnosis begin? And the danger is, especially because it happens right around here, this whole period of semi-trance, shall we say, where they're still dipping in and out of trance, but the critical factor is more out of sync, shall we say, it's offline a little bit. What if they start self-suggesting, this can't have been a trance? This can't have worked. It wasn't hypnosis. I heard everything you said. It can't have been hypnosis. If it can't have been hypnosis, then I can't have changed. If I haven't changed, and I still have the problem. Let's see if I still have the problem. Yep, there it is. It's been self-suggested again. Right? So we need to interrupt that in some way. In, shall we say, more traditional forms of hypnotherapy, which, by the way, I think are great and very valid, we're just in conversation hypnosis, which was why we're not going down that particular road, they will typically do a suggestibility test of some sort, or a hypnotic phenomenon, right? When your hand's glued to the ceiling, you can pretty much tell they're in hypnosis, right? Even if you can hear everything the hypnotist... although I have to admit, I have had people, like, hand glued to the chest or hand glued to a table, and can you move the hand? No. Are you in trance? No. Why can't you move your hand? I don't know, but I'm not in trance. Right? Yeah, or say, I don't want to. Well, try and move it. No, I don't want to. I don't feel like it. Right? So there's lots of different ways they can get around it, but we don't need to go. That's just a little comic aside. The point is, to get past all that, one of the simplest methods for it, and it's not a cover-all, but it's a simple method that will help a lot of these things. If they're hyper-suggestible when they just come out of trance, congratulate them. Ratify. Say, that was a great trance. You did good work. It was a pleasure working with you, right? Imagine this scene. You've been in this wonderful trance. You've just opened your eyes. You look up. Everyone look up at me a moment. Let me just look up a second for a minute. You can carry on writing in a second. All right? You look up as your eyes open up, and you see this. Good job. You did a great job. Well done. That was really something, wasn't it? Right? Now contrast that as an experience to, look down for a second, and then when you look up again, you get this scene. Was that okay? Did I mess you up? I didn't mean to mess you up. I'm sorry. Was it worth $100? I don't know. Do you think that something in my behavior might have a counterproductive suggestion at a point where they're particularly suggestible, right? Yet most of you will be tempted to do that at some point. So be aware of it and realize that possibly the most important suggestion you present is when hypnosis is finished, and just ratify the trance. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? It's a little common sense, but hopefully in the kind of structure, it makes more sense. There you go. Is my mic still working? Good. So what's the first thing you do when you do time? I agree. With this side of the room, this side is a little slow again. There's more of you here. How can they be louder? Try again. What's the first thing we do? And then what do you do? After that? Then the important part? Of course it is. What happens then? Right, to make your life easier for later on. What is after that? Then? That's pretty easy, isn't it? So what's the first thing again? Then? That's pretty simple, isn't it? Find a different partner, go and do it. All right, folks, just come on back to attention to the front. How's that? Are you doing quite a lot of stuff now? Let me ask you this. How many of you feel like when you look at this whole list, like, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff to do. But when you're actually doing it, it's like, oh, you do one thing, you do another thing. And as long as you're only doing one thing at a time, it's okay. Would that be fair to say? Remember this moment. Because as complex as that looks, or as sophisticated as it really is, it's going to get worse. I promise you this. I do promise you this. And I will also promise you that every single person in this room is capable of doing every single thing we'll be doing over the next 6 days, just as easy as this, provided you do it one step at a time. If you choose to do more than one step at a time, it's on you. If at any point you get stuck, you're welcome to put your hand up. An assistant or myself will come over, and that's what we're here for. We will help. And you know what the help you're most likely to receive will be? What step are you on? Have you done it yet? Well, call me back when you have. Does that make sense? Because the place where people put themselves in the biggest difficulty is when they try to do too much. So just take it easy on yourself. Go ahead.
I'm reading this off my page. Is there a way to internalize?
He's asking, I'm reading this off the page. Is there a way to internalizing it? First of all, if you were ever, shall we say, if you spend the rest of your life having to read this off a page, who's going to stop you? Allow me to show you something, if I may. Can I have a quick volunteer? Not anything serious. You're going to be needing to see this. All right? Come on up. Have a seat up here. Okay, you ready for some hypnosis?
Yes.
Go ahead and just close your eyes a moment, would you? Does anything prevent you from doing that? You will all get a manual, and a manual will have every single exercise you will be doing in here inside of it. Right? Thank you very much. Give a nice round of applause. I do not require a memory of you. What I require is an instinct from you. If you can navigate through this, that's fine. And I'll make another promise, which is, yes, there is a way to internalize it, so you never need your notes. By the end of the week, you'll be able to do all these things without a single note, without a single piece of paper. Some of you will require a little bit more practice to get to that point, but most of you will get to that with most exercises. I promise you that too. Tonight, if you stick around a little bit, we'll do an exercise exactly to do that. And even if you should fail at memorizing it, who cares? What matters is, can you do it? Because I haven't written that much on this. These are ideas. You made up the suggestions to make the idea work. That's what's important. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes. Does that help? Okay, folks, we're a little overdue for a break, so we'll have a break now. I realize people need a little natural breathing air and other natural processes need to occur. So this is what I'm going to do. We're going to have a 15-minute break. Please aim to be back here in 10 minutes so we can start right on the dot. If everyone's back here a little earlier, we'll start a little earlier, then we can have a little more content done. Is that cool with you guys? The next thing is, I'm going to ask, whoa, we're not ready to go yet. Just one more thing. As you go into your break, you will see two walls over there. One over there is called the questions wall. You see all the little colored Post-it notes. Just have a look at that in the corner there. Another one on this corner here has the words graffiti written over it, like graffiti. What I'd like you all to do during the break at some point, if it's not this break, it'll be this evening. If not, it'll be in the morning before we start up again. I would like for you to leave something on either one or both of these walls. The questions wall, you just write a little Post-it note, put it on there with a question, or if you want to make a comment about how the training is going in general, please put it on there. On the graffiti wall, I want you to do some graffiti. I'd like you to draw, doodle, make a visual representation, whatever you want to think of it of something that you learned in here that's important to you. Now, it could be an enigma to everyone else. It might be a little flower with a frog jumping off into space. If you can draw that, you're a good artist. I will admire it and have no idea what you did. What is important is not what others take from it, it's what it means to you. Does that make sense? So please leave your mark on one of these two walls at some point during this break or the next break. And in the meantime, assistants can have all the assistants up at the front as everyone goes into the break. Everyone else, please be back in 10 minutes. We'll start in 15 on the dot. Thank you.